You are now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Alex Maxwell, and joining me, as always, is
Mac Lacey. Alex, is our Chapter 3 of the Book of Boba Fett breakdown episode. We're going to be talking everything we liked about the episode, anything we didn't. We're going to be talking about all the insights we may have, any predictions for the future, all of that and more.
Yes, and I can't wait. And if you are new to the show, we were formerly The Mandalorian Watch, but we changed our name for the upcoming live-action television shows, and now we're Children of the Watch because we felt like that really kind of has an umbrella for all the Star Wars TV shows.
There's no rules anymore. We can do whatever we want.
That's right. So that's why we changed our name. And so we do, like Max said, these detailed scene-by-scene breakdowns, but we also do some really fun voicemail hotline episodes where you can call into our voicemail hotline and leave your thoughts and theories. Just make sure it's under 3 minutes, and then if you mess up, you can hang up and just call again and do it over. We won't embarrass you and put the bad one up. So make sure you do that because we want to hear what you guys think as well. And that's one of the... I really enjoy hearing what you guys, the listeners, think. So make sure you click on that. It's going to be in the show notes, our voicemail hotline number, and so you can call in, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. It makes it super worthwhile for us just to hear your thoughts and everything. It makes it feel like a conversation, and definitely highlights of the podcasting world for us. But yeah, that's not what we're doing today. Today, we're talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 3.
Yes, the streets of Mos Espa. So before we jump into the scene-by-scene breakdown, let's just give like our general thoughts and feelings about the episode. Mac, how did you feel when this episode ended and you started seeing all the really cool art from the credits and stuff? How did you feel?
I felt like this episode was exactly what it needed to be. It did. This was kind of a crucial point for me. I got a lot of buy-in on the last episode. With Chapter 2, just very high highs, crazy stuff happening all over the place. This episode, there was not as many big bombastic moments or anything, but I feel, I mean, there's some, but I feel like this episode did what it needed to do to set up the current day underworld plot.
Yeah, the present day timeline was featured more heavily than the last two episodes, and that is something that I know both you and I were kind of hoping for, and so we finally got it in this episode.
Yeah, I love the Tusken stuff, and this episode especially just really but and that was not I didn't really love what they did in this episode. That was a laugh of sorrow, but
nervous laughter.
Yeah. It's my coping mechanism to heartbreak. But so I thought that in the past chapters, they had some of the underworld stuff, the current day storyline, but not enough to really feel like it was making an impact in the overall narrative.
Yeah.
And I feel like it turned that around this episode.
Yeah.
Which was really one of my only kind of concerns about the show at large that I had. And I feel like this episode really kind of righted that in my mind. So very pleased with the episode. Really enjoyed watching it. What about yourself?
I feel pretty much the same way. Now, if you know this podcast, we're generally very positive because we love to talk about things that we love.
Yeah.
There are two things that I've got criticism about on this episode. So, I thought this episode did some really cool and great things, and it was great setup, like you just said, for the present day timeline, and we get more context about everything. And then there was other things that kind of had me scratching my head a little bit, and we'll get to that when we get to it. But if you're listening, you probably know what one of those things are. I loved it and didn't love it at the same exact time. So that whole little sequence. What I'm talking about is the chase scene.
Yeah.
Let's be for real.
We'll get into it.
We'll
sure.
get into it.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts about that. So, real quick business, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at COT Watch. And then it's such a huge help to us if you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Those are the two big ones, or on your podcast app of choice. That's fine too. It just helps people see our podcast, and so that's a great way you can support us. But you can also support us by joining the patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch, where we do bonus voicemail episodes, and we have a lot of fun. The Discord was popping today. We had so many theories and thoughts going back and forth, and I can't wait to get into it. So without further ado, I think we should just jump in.
Let's start the breakdown.
So this is titled Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa, and then the little blurb says, Boba Fett must deal with two very different threats. Very general blurbs here. Now, do you remember back in Mando Season 2, they would be very general, but then the next day, they'd change?
Yeah.
They haven't done that with these.
I'm fine with that.
Me too, yeah.
I think that's a good call. Keeps the experience fresh for everybody.
Exactly. So the writer of this one was, of course, Jon Favreau, and then the director was once again Robert Rodriguez, and I quickly figured that out during that sequence that we will talk about later. I was like, oh, I know who's directing this one. It's the director of Spy Kids. So if you're not familiar with Robert Rodriguez, I probably know him best from Spy Kids because I was a kid when those movies were coming out. But then there's also Desperado with Antonio Banderas.
I feel like that's the big one.
Yeah. He's well-known director. I just got to say, I don't think he's my cup of tea for director. I guess that's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. I kind of share that sentiment. He's not a director that I've just really kept up with or anything. I haven't really did a deep dive into his works or anything.
Yeah.
But just as far as the Star Wars stuff he's done, it's not necessarily my flavor either. Just in the way a lot of the action goes, it feels kind of Power Ranger-y to me. Sometimes. And I had that criticism of chapter. I cannot do the math anymore. Cross shows.
For
Mandalorian. Yeah.
When Boba Fett shows up and just
the sixth episode of that season, whatever the chapter number was.
Is it 16? No, it's not 16. It's 14. Chapter 14.
Sure.
The tragedy.
There you go. Quick maths.
Yeah.
But math completely derailed me. I'm sorry.
Well, I here's the thing. I thought this episode was much better than Chapter 1, which he also directed. I thought this one felt like it was moving. It had a better pace than the first chapter did that Robert Rodriguez directed. And there was a lot of good things in this episode that he did. And then again, some other things. So
I really enjoyed the episode overall.
I did too. Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm berating it, but I'm not. I did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun watching it. So we open to the desolate terrain of Tatooine, and a spider-like droid scurries in view. This is a Boamar monk, and they believed in isolating all physical sensations, so they transported their brains into that nutrient tube that we see when they're walking.
So crazy.
I know. You can spot one of these in Return of the Jedi when 3PO and R2 enter the palace. It's not the same one, but it's the same Boamar monk.
Same idea.
Yeah. Those are weird.
Yeah. There's some stuff in Star Wars hidden away here and there that can be really unnerving. The folks that have they're headless from the nose up.
Yeah.
They have the cybernetics on top.
Yes.
That messes with me. I can't remember what they're called. Yeah. It's like Lobot, but even more extreme.
Yeah. You don't even have a face anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes Star Wars just likes to get really disturbing.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah. So the Boamar monk walks past Boba's palace, and inside 8D8 shows Boba and Fennec the territory that Jabba claimed when he was in power. And 8D8 is a little hesitant to mention Jabba's name. And he holds back the name because he thought that Boba would feel insulted, or rather threatened, by the name. And then like I really like that back and forth exchange, and at the end Boba's like, yeah, well now I'm insulted.
Right. It wasn't before, but
I really like 8D8. Like he is like the perfect kind of droid to be telling things to Boba, I feel like.
yeah, I love that you can see the baggage he's carrying from working under Jabba.
Yes.
Like he just in the way that he's tentative about everything
Right.
almost. Yeah, and just in some of those little, he's almost like expecting to get punished or in some way at any
Right.
turn, you know?
Yeah, he's just like walking on eggshells all the time, it feels like. And so I kind of like that. And so at Fennec's insistence, 8D8 continues, and he says, after the sail barge disaster, there was a power vacuum. Bib Fortuna assumed Jabba's mantle, and under Master Bib's watchful eye, Mos Espa was divided amongst 3 families. The Trandoshans took the city center, the Aqualish, the workers' district here, and the Klatooians, the starport and the upper sprawl. And so the upper sprawl part, that's the part we see in episode 1, because that's where Anakin lived. He lived in Mos Espa.
Right.
So I thought that was cool how they kind of showed us the map of the city.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm sure that sequence will be referenced in a million arguments over minute details
of course.
Forevermore. I thought it was weird that he was just referring to these different factions by like what species they were.
Yeah, like they don't have names.
Nobody has names. It's not like the Forktail Boys or something. I don't know.
Forktail Boys.
Yeah, Forktails are dragons in the Witcher games.
Bosk Boys.
Bosk's Boys.
I don't know.
Bosk babies.
Bosk babies. Is Bosk going to show up in this show?
I have a feeling.
I don't feel like you go to the lengths of making Trandoshans look that way and him not show up later.
Mm-hmm. I agree. You're talking about the delegate or whatever. And
yeah,
the first chapter. Yeah.
Yeah. So 8D8 goes on to explain that Bib relied on the uneasy alliances to preserve his tribute and title. And then he goes on to say, everyone is waiting to see what kind of leader you are. And then Fennec says that the mayor has no power and someone else more than likely sent the assassins to kill them. And then Boba says the Hutts. And then Fennec says could be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're going to get into it. We did announce that there was going to be an accusation, possibly, potentially.
Yes. I've got an accusation for this podcast for sure.
Yeah, but I do not for a minute think the Hutts are telling the truth in what they say later in anything, right. But also I don't think anyone is playing the part that anyone says they are. I don't when anytime that the mayor is explaining anything, or not the mayor, but the mayor's like executive
Major
assistant
Domo.
dude, Major Domo. Yeah. Anytime that guy says anything, it's a lie. You can just take it to the bank there. I think we'll get into the accusation later, but there's some stretching of the truth going on in this chapter for sure. I think
I'll go ahead and say it. I'm not afraid to say it.
We're just gonna do it right here. Just come out and just say it.
I'm gonna accuse someone. I don't know if we can trust Fennec Shand right now.
We can't. I don't think so. This episode, man, and there's a glaring red flag.
Yes.
With the BK sequence, but other like in several other areas in this chapter, she just seems to be acting shadier and shadier.
There's little clues throughout this whole chapter that I did think Robert Rodriguez and Ming-Na Wen did a really good job of kind of planting some things, I feel like, in this episode. Now, maybe I am totally misreading things, but I feel like the show does kind of want you to start asking the question of, like, who's Fennec? Who is she really?
And, like, why is she here?
Right. Yeah. And I think in next week's episode, we get some flashbacks with her.
Interesting. We'll, just chronologically speaking, that makes sense.
Like she would have to be next.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So, like you said, I'm not sure anyone's really telling the truth right now. So, I feel like whoever is actually in charge. Nobody is like willing to say it just yet. But there is a person that we'll talk about later.
We have done, we cannot say, and we'll get to it, or we'll talk about it later another time this entire podcast. We've said it entirely too many
Right.
times.
It's Kira. I feel
It's
like
Kira.
Kira is connected to all of the people that we're talking about in some way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was wearing my Crimson Dawn shirt earlier, just in anticipation. But
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's something going on. So possible open door here. Boba wants her to wait on asking around, and then one of the Gamorrean guards alerts that a vassal is here to meet with them. And Boba goes onto the throne, and a man enters, and it's Lortha Peel. He's a watermonger in the workers' district, and he's played by Stephen Root. I know him best from the show Turn, but he's also in Office Space. He's in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
You probably recognize this guy.
Yeah, for sure. Office Space is what I recognize him from, of course. But I love him. He's great. He's just like a, he's a great character actor.
And he plays this part really well.
Yeah.
So 8DA asks what he wants, and Lortha just comes out and says it. No one respects you.
I love that. That's just the first thing he said.
I know.
It's not even his, like, he didn't come here to ask that. He gets to what he asks about later. He just had to add that up top.
Yeah, I feel like everyone on Tatooine thinks they can manipulate Boba in a way, and I'm wondering if that's what they did with Bib. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the way it worked with Bib Fortuna. They manipulated him into things.
They said he ruled by making kind of uneasy alliances. So I feel like Bib would just say whatever he needed to say to anybody to get them to agree. It's almost like that movie, is it Movie 42 or something like that? I can't remember the name, but it's just something. But they tricked a whole bunch of actors to all appear in the movie together by saying this person's in it to one person, and then they'd say that person was in it to the person they told. Anyway, hard to trace that idea without any of the specifics on the top of my head.
That's great podcast.
Yeah, great. We are really killing it this episode.
That's awesome. Probably that's the way things worked out with Bib, but Boba's got a different way he's going to operate, and he's learning. We still are seeing Boba learn on the job here, and Boba says, let him speak after an outburst from 8DA, and then Fennec gives him a quick look like it's a mistake. That's one of the clues. Now, of course, she has been saying the last 2 chapters, like, I don't think you're doing this the right way, but in a very nice way to Boba.
Right. Yeah, as sort of an advisor.
Yeah. Yeah. So she, at the very least, she does not agree with Boba's methods. At the very least. If she can still be trusted and always is going to stand by Boba Fett and do whatever he asks, at the very least, she's like really confused about why he's doing it a certain way. Yeah. And then Lortha goes on to explain that ever since Lord Fortuna was, and he was about to say assassinated, but then corrects himself and says perished. He says that the streets have turned to chaos. Lortha says that he's insulted on the behalf at the disrespect, and then brings up the assassination attempt, and then Fennec is over him and tries to have him removed, but Lortha asks about his petition and then is allowed to continue. So basically, like, Fennec's like, okay, get this guy out of here. He's being disrespectful. But then Lortha's like, wait a second, I haven't even asked what I wanted to ask. I was just setting you guys up.
Right. It's just wild to me to not save those comments until after you've been able to request what you want.
Yeah. He's brave. I'll say that much. Lortha Peel is brave. He says that a bunch of street youths are causing him trouble and stealing his water. Youths, Mac.
Some youths.
Boba says he grew up surrounded by water. For some reason that made me laugh. Yeah, we know, Boba. You don't have to tell us.
Yeah. Okay, so plot. I will also say this of this episode: dialogue was not 100%. for this episode.
And that's more on Jon Favreau than it is Robert Rodriguez.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say plot wise, I love the writing of this episode, but like script wise, there's a couple things in here that are clunky.
Yeah, it's just like, why are you throwing that in there? Yeah, like who are you telling this to?
Yeah, I can't remember what moment it was, but there's a moment where like somebody said something and then Boba said the exact same thing just back to them. And I'm like, did we need that? We could have just skipped a line, you know?
Right. So Lortha confirms that Tatooine was once completely covered with water. And this is the second time they mention that. And I think they mention it another time in this episode. So it makes me wonder, Mac, do you think that Tuskens... Just a quick aside here. Tuskens were once aquatic, and that's why they have to wear their wrappings and stuff to like.
Yeah, we had a and he's gonna call in, so I'm sure this might be a topic we save for the next voicemail episode. Talking about some terraforming and the history of and prehistory of Tatooine, if you will. I think that's going to be a topic for the next voicemail episode. So
that's a good idea.
Maybe we should just tease it now and save it till then.
Yeah. So Lortha explains that these street youths are half man, half machines. Yeah. And they equip themselves with droid parts. And if Boba can rid these horrible street youths, he'll double his tribute to Lord Fett. And then we cut to night. Mos Espa, very cool looking at night.
Yeah.
Star Wars places at night are 10 times better. If you've been to Galaxy's Edge at night.
Yes.
Holy cow.
At night.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I mean, Coruscant is definitely cooler at night.
Yes.
I love and it's always night because it's underwater, but like the Gungan city, the way it's all illuminated and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some great nighttime locales in the galaxy.
Night. Yeah. So
After dark.
Boba Fett.
That's a Patreon episode.
Yeah. We'll table that for the Patreon. Boba, Fennec, and the guards march through the streets in the workers' district, and they round a corner and see at the end of the street these horrible street youths are listening to loud music, and even worse, Mac, they're drinking water.
Yeah, man, how criminal the kids of today.
I love it though. Like, here's the thing: like this gang. By the way, the audio description calls them the mods.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really cool because they're like driving space Vespas basically, which like mods in the 60s, you know, that was the whole hallmark. So
here's the thing.
But like also mods for droid parts. So there's like a cultural and like a Star Wars tie there.
It's really cool. Like I like that name for them. I really like these people, and like I know people I already saw all day today. People have a lot of opinions on the Vespas and the scooters. I do too. That's not my issue.
Unapologetically unabashed. I love them.
I think they're very like George Lucas would love that.
100%. X-wings are just drag racers. Like every Star Wars is just cars anyway. So let's just have a nice shiny, sparkling Vespa scooter, and that's it.
Yeah, and if you don't like them, you don't like them. But some people don't like Tora Calican, and you know. And
some people like to have fun. So.
Now,
it's coming from the person who actually doesn't like Tora Calican.
You hate him. Toro would fit in with this crew, would he not?
Nah.
No?
No, every single one of these kids is infinitely cooler than him.
Speeder Chick is pretty cool. I won't lie about that. So
they're all cool. Are you kidding me?
Well, Speeder Chick
is very cool.
Yeah. Boba approaches and asks the Speeder Chick, played by Sophie Thatcher, where
does she have a name yet?
Yeah, so her name is Drash.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't remember if she got named yet. Yeah. It hasn't stuck yet.
Yeah.
It will.
Drash Rendar. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, her name is Drash. I think she's pretty cool. The rest of them, not as cool as her, but I
like the guy with the eye. I like his eye.
Which one? The one, because there's like another guy that had like his eye split open and it looked like a Terminator eye, and then you had the
one that looks like the white Bionicle, and that's gonna hit really hard for like
he's
specific
got
people.
He's got the Super Saiyan thing, his power level's over 4,000.
Yes,
that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, So yeah, he's cooler than the rest too. And so they have a back and forth exchange, and Cybernetic Eye Youth, that's that guy, says that the reason they stole the water is because Lortha charges too much for it. And then Drash gets really brave here. She says, "Look, old man." And then he says, "My name is Boba Fett." And then Drash says, "We know who you are. Go back to your palace." She's brave.
Yeah.
I think she's super cool. Now, listen, I know she's not the Tusken kid. I accept that. I let go of that theory. But I really like her, and I hope she continues to have kind of a cool role in the show. Like it just grows, because I love new Star Wars characters. Like I love that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really like these kids. I like that it gives you this little look into this other aspect of life on Tatooine. Like, living in Tatooine sucks. And these kids have found a little spark of joy by driving their sparkly scooters. And I just really like it.
Drinking water.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like they're not even drinking alcohol or causing, like, they're just drinking water.
Yeah.
These are great kids.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're role models, I think, for the youth of today, actually.
Street youth.
Yeah.
Drash says he's no Daimyo, but a crime boss like the rest of them. And then Cybernetic Eye Youth says that Lortha charges a month's wages for water. And Drash says that they don't even have wages. And Boba's a little confused why they'd just be standing around instead of working in a place called the Workers' District.
Right.
But then Drash says, "Look around. There is no work." And I love this because, like, now I can't take credit for this. I did see this somewhere on Twitter, and I wish I remembered who. But basically, there's a lot of Batman in him. Instead of beating these street youths, he adopts them and he's like, "Now you work for me."
Yep. Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved that, like, I don't know, Boba just has never had a concept of, like, being in the position that these youth are, right? He's always had a very in demand set of skills in the galaxy, and he's always been in demand, never really worried about finding work, right? I don't think Boba's worried about that for a very, very long time.
Yeah, and they kind of have no purpose other than just riding their Vespas around and having fun.
Right. They've had to make their own purpose because like society has not provided them one,
Right.
And I don't know. I like that. I like that it gives you just like that little slice of life into Tatooine,
Yeah, absolutely. And then so Boba approaches them. They stand their ground to Boba. And he takes off his helmet and says, "Then you will work for me. You've got guts. I'll give you that. You better fight as good as you talk, Dank." So Dank is like, that's part of Dank Ferrick. That's part of the...
So he cussed.
He
cussed at him. Called him a bad word.
Yeah, but...
And it's a 4-letter word. He called him a 4-letter word, Alex.
Yeah, but like that's, he's trying to be tough to the street youths and, get their respect.
We had both thought that like maybe she might end up as kind of like a mentor-y or kind of figure to for Boba, and I think that's shaping up. She's definitely the most proficient. She's the leader, just like in the way that the episode portrayed them. So I think maybe she might take Fennec's place eventually.
Ooh.
If some drama goes down there.
Oh dang.
Like maybe at the end of the series kind of thing. But who knows?
Interesting. So Lortha Peel runs out, and like, was he just hiding the whole time, listening and watching?
Yeah, I really think he was. I think he was just like, all right, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. So he's mad that Boba is letting them just walk away, and Boba asks how much they owe, and Peel says 1,300 credits, but Boba's only giving him 500 and wants them to consider the matter resolved. And Boba says if he doesn't like it, then go to Mos Eisley. And then he has one last warning for Lortha Peel: cut his prices. And I really like his display of leadership here.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I like that there's like it's not quite a Robin Hood thing, because like but like there is sort of that spirit there, like I like that, like he's obviously lying about what water costs, right?
Yeah,
Water
for
doesn't
sure.
actually cost 1,300 credits. He's just charging that because he can, because everybody
Yeah,
lives in a desert. So
right.
like I like that that like, that kind of commitment to justice in that regard that Boba
Yeah.
seems to have. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah,
Like,
Boba's not gonna let and like I feel like it's setting up for like if Boba does take over Tatooine, it's like, okay, this is the way things will be everywhere. You know what I
right.
mean? So Boba then says for the mods, that's the street youth gang, to follow him, and then they all get on what the audio description says is they're shiny levitating scooters, each a candy color.
Yeah,
I
they
just
are candy colored, huh?
they are.
Love
Lortha
it.
Peel watches as he clutches his credits, and then we cut to black. The Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 3, The Streets of Mos Espa. And then we enter back on Boba's palace, and just outside, a wart, which is one of those frog things, captures a bat in its mouth. And inside Boba's chamber, our view creeps in on Boba's Bacta's pod. Bacta.
Either
Inside,
way,
yeah,
it's a made up word. Doesn't exist.
right. Inside, Boba once again remembers Camino, and we see Slave One lift and fly away while young Boba gets up from his bed to chase it until it fades from view. And the shape of the ship is a teardrop on young Boba's face. Tears in the rain, Mac. Tears in the rain.
Like tears in rain.
Yeah, that's from Blade Runner.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Mac really loves Blade Runner, especially the original one, right?
Tech ships on fire off the shores of Orion.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
He's got several shirts that are like,
Yeah, I have a Tyrell Corporation shirt.
yeah. So, okay, is there something to this specific flashback? Because we keep coming back to it. We've come back to it every episode so far. Is this going to get played out even more? Are we going to learn what's happening here?
Has it? So I have not. Every single time I've seen it, I've been like, "There's something to this." We keep seeing it, and then the rest of
Right.
the episode happens, and I forget about it. So I haven't gone back. Have you noticed by any chance? Are they giving us more each time? Or?
This one gave us a little more.
Okay.
This one gave us a little more, but the other two, not really, no.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe, I mean, it serves as just like an emotional center for Boba to me. Like, it's just like us entering his consciousness or his unconscious, I guess.
That's like his anchor.
Right. That's just kind of like that's a core memory for him that kind of has his whole being wrapped up in a way, right? Because you have it kind of his trauma, the things he struggles with, like the loss of his dad,
right.
And like you've got kind of the like his dad leaving, right?
Right.
But you have Boba on the flip side of that coin too. You have the other part of his life, which is him in a ship leaving for a mission, you know? So I like that image, how it just it's just like essence of Boba Fett in my mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And so then we see a flash of lightning, and it brings us back to the twin sons of Tatooine, and Boba Fett is in his Tusken robes, and he sits atop a bantha, and the chieftain and the Tusken kid watch as Boba leaves the camp, and he crosses the Great Dune Sea until he finally arrives in Mos Eisley, coming up on 2 Jawas. Now, of course, Mos Eisley is the town that we saw in A New Hope where Luke and Obi-Wan met Han Solo, Cantina Band, and then he asked them where the Pikes do their business in Mos Eisley. And after getting his answer, he rides past stormtrooper helmets being placed on spikes, and then behind you can actually spot Peli Motto walking with her pit droids. And so this
I didn't notice.
Yeah, so this kind of gives us an idea. Okay, all of this is happening before season 1 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right? And so like they're just putting those stormtrooper helmets on the spikes, and then we see Peli Motto in the background. All of this is before season 1 of The Mandalorian. Before, or at least at the very least, before Din gets there.
Yeah. The stormtrooper thing was the helmets on the spears. That was a good choice because that image was so prevalently featured in the marketing and everything for The Mandalorian.
It was smart.
So I feel like that's a really good tie-in.
Yeah, because then it like helps people who maybe don't listen to this podcast and totally should, so you should share it with them. Kind of give that visual cue of like, oh yeah, okay, now I know where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm thinking that the next episode in the flashbacks, we're gonna see him coming across Fennec's body in the desert.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. That makes sense. Just to like where they've placed it chronologically. I mean, he's wearing the same thing. It's kind of, you know.
That would mean though, if that really is coming up, he was with the Tuscans for years.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean,
Yeah.
he's kind of healed up a little bit. I mean, like,
Right.
you can kind of see him healing, and I would imagine that'd take a little bit if you're not soaking in the back tank each day.
Right. And so Boba dismounts and sees 2 pike guards, and after hitching the bantha and petting it, that was a good directing choice there.
Yes, it was, because it shows this like love for animals and stuff that's going to come up later.
Yes. Yeah.
and just adds to this general idea of like Boba Fett gives respect where respect is due. And he's like, this animal just carried me across this desert. I'm gonna give it a nice pat to just show that I know, like, it knows I appreciate it.
And it's just,
I do think they got a real elephant and put it in a bantha costume again,
really?
too, for the shot where he actually dismounts and walks around. I think they may have actually gotten an elephant dressed up again, because that's how they did the banthas originally.
Yeah, that would be cool to see on the Disney Gallery episode how they did that.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is going to come out.
I don't know. The VFX are so good nowadays. I don't know half the time.
Yeah, right.
But just it seemed like it to me, from like how much practicality was involved with him dismounting and walking around and everything.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
anyway.
it's I don't know. I just thought that was a nice touch to show like Boba really cares for animals too. Like we're getting more and more layers to who Boba is, and he's not who we thought he was. And I feel like we got to be okay with that, because I really kind of like this Boba more than just the silent, I'm going to kill everyone person with no personality.
Yeah. No, I like this Boba. I'm way better as far as like the person I want to like hang out with or rely on or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I might want to hire the faceless goon before this Boba, but like,
right.
That's probably the only and that's if I'm an evil crime lord like Jabba or something. Yeah. I do love I keep going back to like, we are learning as the galaxy is learning that Boba Fett is not necessarily all we thought he was, or he's way more than we thought he was, you know?
Yeah, I think everyone in the show is learning that too.
Right. It's the whole thing. No one respects you, but they're coming to respect you. When he rides in on a Rancor in a couple episodes, they're gonna respect him, you know? Yeah. Like, but yeah, and we're learning that the myths and the rumors we've heard and been told are not necessarily the case, just as the galaxy is. And I think that's a really cool process for us to have to undergo. It's not the most comfortable thing.
Right.
But I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So he's granted access, and in the center of the room is a maskless pike. And Boba already sent a message ahead with the pikes when he sent the pikes last episode to walk in a single file line. And they discuss protection plans. And then the pike says he talked to his bosses in Obadiah, which is the pike's homeworld. And he says that they don't want to pay protection to more than one party. And then Boba says, we are one party. I'm collecting on behalf of the Tuscans of the Dune Sea. So this is really interesting. Is this, Mac, still his present day plan, you think? Like he's doing all this for the Tuscans?
I feel like it's definitely, this is the inciting incident and parallel. I think maybe his sights have been set a little higher by now, though. Maybe.
Okay.
Like,
got it.
I have a hard time believing he would be doing all of this just for this one. Like, I think it's definitely on his agenda for sure. Right. Like, but I think he's seeing these injustices happening to marginalized folks in like this on this planet, and he's realizing like there's a lot of people who like could benefit from a better daimyo, you know, and I really think he's like this moment with his struggles in the past with the Tuscans gave him that love for finding justice for folks that haven't had that, right? And I think that it's then grown, and I think he's gonna try to bring that sentiment to all the people he can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it wasn't just the Tuscans he saw. Like this specific swoop bite gang actually was, you know, harming a moisture farmer too. You know, he saw that too. So yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And so,
but I think it's the inciting incident for sure. It's the first thing that really makes him realize that there's practical things he can do for other people, and that maybe it's the first time he realizes that he's actually interested in doing that.
That's good. Yeah. And so then we learn the name of the swoop bite gang, which is the Kintan Striders, and they're already collecting the protection money from the Pikes. And Kintan Striders are actually a thing. They're a Dejaric piece, but also a real living being that kind of looks like a golem a little bit, like just a giant rock monster type thing. A little bit. And then Boba insists that they don't have to keep paying the gang. The Tuscans outnumber them, and that the sand has belonged to the Tuscans since the ocean has dried. Again, there's another reference to that. I don't know necessarily what that means, but we'll talk about it on our voicemail hotline episode because like they might be setting us up for something. Maybe there's like an oasis somewhere on Tatooine, or you know what I mean? Like
it seems like they're definitely trying to draw our attention to the fact that there used to be water there.
Yeah, for sure.
It was mentioned twice in the same episode, you know?
Right.
So.
Right. And the Pike leader explains that he doesn't want to pay both of them, and Boba says that he will take care of it. And then at 13:04, this is just me, it kind of looks like the Crimson Dawn symbol on the ceiling to me.
Yeah, just if you squint right.
A variation of it. It reminded me of the Crimson Dawn symbol a little
Evocative of the Crimson Dawn symbol.
Yeah. So Boba returns back to the Tusken camp, but on the horizon we see smoke rising in the air, and man, this scene is just brutal for so many reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I shed an actual tear. Like it was I don't know, just like especially when he puts that final like the little like child's gaffy stick on the pile, that just really got me, man. But especially like with the parallels they've been drawing with like the Tuscan folks and like the kind of the analogous struggles they have with indigenous people, and like how often that site like occurred in real life, you know. It just really heart-wrenching and definitely a big kind of emotional moment that the show hadn't really had a lot of, you know, up until this point.
Yeah, and I feel like we all knew this was coming. Like we kind of had it in our minds, like, yeah, this is probably going to happen. This is one of my criticisms of the two that I have, is like it's a little cliched to have them all killed.
Right.
I was kind of hoping at least some of them survive or something. Like I
was hoping the kid was going to survive. But yeah.
Now there is still a chance because we didn't actually see the kid or the warrior queen.
Right.
But I feel like the stick, when he threw the stick in, that was kind of like they don't want to show a child's dead body, so that was more representative of
that's what it seemed like to me. Like, and like that was the point they were trying to drive home. Like, I don't know. I did like have the thought, I was like, no more Tuscan deaths. Let's not have any more Tuscans slaughtered in Star Wars, you know.
It's sad.
I'm just like I'm not like it was a powerful moment for the story, and like I think it's gonna you know, there's gonna be an impact that's gonna be felt from it for a long time, like in this show. But if it doesn't happen again, that'll be great.
Yeah. So Boba gets off the bantha and runs to the ruined Tuscan camp, and our view rises away from him to see the Tuscan camp in cinders. A speeder bike is destroyed. A huge bantha carcass is laying there. The music invokes something very religious sounding, like a funeral. And we joked in our coverage of Mandalorian Season 2 that Boba Fett had to have some sort of religious experience in the Sarlacc, but I actually think this is the experience. This is the point that changed Boba forever.
Yeah.
This is kind of, like you said, this is the inciting incident. This is what's driving him. This is his Luke Skywalker Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru have been burned alive moment.
Right.
But he's had
Yeah.
several of those moments in his life. I mean, he had it with his dad.
His dad.
Most notably, now he's having it again. And so I do like that, like, we're not defined sometimes by just one thing. Several things can happen to us in a lifetime, and it's like, how do we respond to those moments?
Right.
And so it is really cool to see Boba very, like, I don't know, like, he's very, Tamora Morrison did a great job acting in this part. Like, you could tell, like, he was just so sad.
Yeah.
You know? So it's also probably a good time to point out that Ludwig has composed the themes of the show, but it's actually Joseph Shirley who does the music.
So, okay. And the music was right on
Great.
point here.
So, like, I believe Joseph Shirley, like, is his assistant. So,
Gotcha.
like, they typically do things in pairs or duos or whatever, and I think he's taking over a little more of the show, which is good because then it keeps, like, a consistent sound.
Yeah, and you need, like, it's just like everything. I mean, like, John Williams can't make Star Wars music forever, right?
Right.
And so, like, you got to keep the lineage going. And I like that, like, this now, you know, maybe he'll get his own show to score, and he'll have kind of learned the process, you know, working on Star Wars, and, you know, be able to take it over to a new project and everything like that. So,
quick rabbit trail, but how cool would it be if John Williams did the music for Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Or if he did just like one new theme for it or something.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So it's an absolute massacre. Boba wanders through the camp and he sees some of the deceased Tuscans. They sit propped up against wooden posts and then comes across the chieftain. This is where I was like, oh god. His gaffy stick was just out of reach from him. Yeah. And Boba looks up and notices something else. And then he sees the graffiti tag of the Kenton Striders on one of the tents. And then he remembers them. They have a little flashback scene there. And then back in the twilight of the night, Boba throws a torch on the gathered bodies of the camp. And then he adds the gaffies to the fire and takes one last look at the chieftain's gaffy before tossing it in. Then the Heartbreaker, he takes out the Tusken Kid's stick and looks at it one last time before adding it to the fire. And so, like, maybe Tusken Queen and Kid are still alive, but I'm not hopeful about that. But it's a possibility because, as we all know, even if you die on screen in Star Wars, you can still come back. So maybe they're out there somewhere, and, like, in the finale, they show up and Tusken Kid's like Tusken teenager. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm hoping. But
here's hoping. I don't have expectations of that happening, though.
No. So he stares at the flames for a moment before he begins to lead his bantha out of the decimated camp, and then the screen begins to turn green, indicating that the flashback is almost over, and Boba is back in the tank, but there's a shadow over him, and the pod opens, and the water is spilling out, and Black Chrysanthemum roars. Like, I jumped a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, there, like...
Yeah.
He's standing right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was like, I figured at first that this was going to be a dream and Boba was going to wake up from it. And then it never happened.
Not a dream. So, like, I guess BK loves killing people in their sleep because Boba mentioned something about this last chapter. And he's like, this is not the despots of Dur, and I'm not a sleeping Trandoshan.
Yeah.
BK loves killing some people while they're sleeping.
Yeah, he's got a reputation, and I can see that it holds true because that's what he wanted to do.
So Chrysanthemum goes straight for the throat, hurls him across the floor, and Boba gets back up to fight BK, and he's thrown into his armor. And after getting hit by electric knuckles, he grabs his gaffy stick and gets some good shots in before Chrysanthemum overpowers him again and begins bear hugging him. At this point, I was with you, Mac. I was like, surely this is a dream because he's going to be paralyzed if this keeps happening.
Right. I was expecting a like a Nightfall situation, like Bane breaking Batman's back, like that.
I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna kill Boba like right now. Like somebody's got to do something. And Boba tries to punch, but then BK bites him. I mean, it's just brutal. This is what I think Robert Rodriguez is best at, is scenes like this, just a brutal fight scene. And he did a really good job on this portion of the episode. And I thought Boba was gonna have his back broken. Then someone is walking towards him with a vibro knife, and it's Drash. And the mods surround him, BK, with their own weapons. And then Boba joins in, and then the Gamorreans arrive. But have you noticed who's not here yet?
I have. There's a suspicious absence that is not addressed. Finnick is not here. I feel like Finnick should have been the first person on the scene, right?
Yes. That's okay. So that's why I'm throwing the accusation out there, is because actually I respect Finnick's abilities. She would know if Chrysanthemum is in the palace, right? And she would be there first. But why did it take her so long to get there?
Right. Also,
how did
he's a Wookiee.
How did he get in there?
He's not inconspicuous. He's wearing metal shoulder pads with spikes on them. I'm sure he's got some jingle jangle to his gait, with the metal wobbling
loud.
around. Yeah, I feel like he probably would have had to get, and I mean, like, the Gamorreans would have woken up at the door if he came in that way, or like,
Now, it's possible he climbed all the way up there because he is a Wookiee.
He is a Wookiee. It's potentially the case, in through the window, maybe. But I think it might be more likely if, like, there was maybe a back entrance that only trusted advisors to the daimyo would know about,
and it was left open. Because, like, I don't
just
think
conveniently, right?
Yeah. I don't think Chrysanthemum would know that Finnick is helping him necessarily, if this is the case, because
it just depends on what her play is.
That is true.
Because if she's actually in league with the Hutts or another party,
Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, I think, which might be more likely.
Yeah.
We have to remember Finnick's resume says assassin. And that's how Boba Fett introduces her in this show.
Yeah. Here's the thing, okay? I want Finnick to be a good guy. I think that's
I do
fun.
too. I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah. But I think it would be so bold to make her the villain. A villain of Boba Fett, and have that turn. So far, the show has been pretty safe, so I don't know if it's actually gonna happen. But man, I would respect it and kind of love it if Finnick turned on Boba. Maybe it's a situation where it's like Lando a little bit, where it's like she kind of regrets it and then ends up helping him anyway. But
yeah, I mean, Star Wars loves a redemption story too, so there's always. We got several more episodes. There's a lot of time for anything to happen.
I would just love a turn like that, because I don't think Boba obviously would not see that happening, and I think that's just good storytelling. Now, I'm not expecting it to happen, but it was just strange to me that Finnick was last to get there. Yeah. And then we did talk about this on the Discord a little bit today, and I got to shout out Joden. I said I would do this. He said, what if it's 8D8 who let BK in? And I was like, that could be it too.
Yeah, that could be fun. A little treasonous droid action going on.
Yeah, that's totally possible. Okay, so back to the fight scene. I love how BK just tackles the Gamorreans, both of them, all the way down the stairs.
Yeah.
And so the Gamorreans are just getting owned by BK, and the mods arrive, and then Finnick arrives, and he's standing over the trapdoor, and Finnick pulls the trigger, and Chrysanthemum falls, but is still hanging on until Finnick throws a knife at his hands, and he finally falls into the Rancor pit, and Boba, with a nice house robe on, orders the mods to get the Gamorreans to his Bacta pod, which is really cool. That's not something Jabba would do. That's not something Bib Fortuna would do.
Right.
He's showing loyalty to those who show loyalty to him.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, he's saying he intends to rule with respect, and he has to show that he respects people in his employ. If he ever hopes to earn respect.
He's a good boss.
Yeah.
Bob's a good boss.
Yeah.
So then we cut to a feast after the fight scene, and there's lots of options here, lots of good food. Finnick sits at the table. She takes a swig of wine and props her feet up on the table while she eats a turkey leg.
The food. Oh, I had not eaten breakfast yet. I hadn't
you're
had
pretty
anything
hungry.
in my stomach. I got so hungry watching this. The only food that's ever looked better on screen to me is the Lost Boys feast in Hook
I
after
was about
Peter
to
starts
say, that's
believing
my
in him
favorite
again.
one.
It's
Yeah.
the best one.
Yeah, it
Uh,
all looks like Play-Doh, but man, it looks so good.
yeah, it just looks like a feast of like brightly colored puddings.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, this was a little evocative of that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Boba doesn't want any more food though, but Finnick reminds
It's
him that
also salad that comes out when he's been like
he's kinda mad, yeah.
shawing on a turkey leg.
I don't know what the droid's trying to say to Boba, but but he's not happy with it. Finnick reminds him that he's the head of the family and he should enjoy the trappings. And again, there's another little hint there of like, you're not doing this the right way.
Right.
And it makes me just kind of wonder. I'm just wondering. That's all.
Don't you think in his current course, he's less likely to be taken advantage of by people who wish him harm? Maybe. Like, don't you think by like refusing all the like not getting super into the food and drink and stuff, you're decreasing your chances of getting poisoned?
Yeah. And he's also like he's also not getting like this cocky attitude of like,
right,
I'm fine, I beat them.
Right. I'm invulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So Boba realizes that he has to send a message, but Finnick argues he already has sent a message. And again, it kind of just, I don't know, weird there. He said he should wait for them to show their hands. And then Boba says, you can't wait with the Hutts. And then conveniently, 88 arrives announcing that the twins are there and they've brought a gift.
Yeah.
And Finnick smiles at Boba, and then we cut to the palace doors opening slowly, and the twins sit upon their litter, and the male says that they've come to apologize, and the sister admits to sending Black Chrysanthemum to kill him, and the male once again says that they are sorry, and then gives Boba a gift, which is a Rancor, and driving the Rancor,
Danny Trejo.
pretty cool.
I love it.
Which, like he's in a lot of Robert Rodriguez movies.
Yeah.
So they're good friends.
I love it though. I love him. He just anytime he shows
Wars.
up on the screen, it makes sense. Yeah, especially as a Rancor trainer.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
It's so cool. And we notice that there's blinders over the Rancor's eyes, and Boba tells them that they have to leave if they want a truce. And the female Hutt says that they are leaving, but for a different reason. The territory has already been promised to another syndicate, and Boba asks, promised by who? The female answers, it was the mayor. They announce that they're going back to Hutta. They don't want a war. It's bad for business. And then BK is marched out with chains. And Boba says that they can have Black Chrysanthemum if they renounce all claim to Tatooine. But the male says something interesting. We are leaving, and we recommend you do the same.
Yep.
Surely, Mac, they're not afraid of the mayor, right?
They're not afraid of the mayor. They're not afraid of the Pikes. The Pikes have always been lesser than the Hutts in as far as like my perception of their reputations.
I hope we're not Mephistoing this, where like everyone was convinced Mephisto was going to be in WandaVision and then wasn't.
Yeah.
But man, it just seems to, it feels like everything's pointing to this is not what you think it is, and there's someone big in charge, and I think it would make sense for it to be Kira.
Yeah. And yeah, Kira and Crimson Dawn, we're a broken record at this point. Like,
what if she doesn't show up in the show?
That's okay.
Yeah. But man,
but it'd be fun. I'd like to see how they handled it. I'm like, surely they wouldn't age up Emilia Clarke, right?
Not too much, I don't think. Maybe some wrinkles because like it's what 15 years after Solo? 15 years after Solo?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean like I fully expect they would do makeup and stuff. I'm just not like they wouldn't do any kind of like CGI face or anything.
No, she's not that much older. No. It just makes sense to have her in this. And like, it would be cool to kind of get the resolution to her story, especially for people, like that was kind of a hanging thread, like that,
Right.
that was something that we did not get because there was no Solo 2.
Right.
So,
and there hasn't been a follow-up book or anything like that. She just showed up in War of the Bounty Hunters. And that's the
right. And if Black Chrysanthemum is showing up from the comics, then
makes sense.
Yeah. So, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't feel like the mayor actually has that much power.
No,
not that much to be like Hutts be afraid of them.
I think he's more or less an agent for somebody. For Crimson Dawn, I think, but the Hutts maybe.
Yep. Yeah. I think the mayor works for Crimson Dawn, and you were right. Like in the Solo time period, the Crimson Dawn aesthetic is black and gold, but in the comics, they have switched to red and white.
It's red and white?
Well, red and white, and maybe I've seen some red and black. What's the mayor's primary colors of his guards?
Red and black.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the twins say that BK is their tribute to Boba, and then they turn to leave, and immediately Boba releases Chrysanthemum. Either he's very trusting, or does he actually have an end game planned here?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't have.
I could see in the finale BK coming to work for Boba.
Yeah, I could see him just not being in the show anymore.
He just runs off into the desert of Tatooine, never to be seen again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Okay. I don't know. Here's why I think he might come back and work for Boba, because Boba says this to him: "Take it from an ex-bounty hunter. Don't work for Scugholes. It's not worth it." So I think Chrysanthemum will realize, it might be worth working for Boba. If you let me live. So he hesitates, but then he runs off into the desert. And then Fennec goes on to say she'll arrange a meeting with the mayor, and then they both eye the Rancor. And then we switch to the Rancor pit door opens. Boba enters with the Rancor keeper, and Boba asks why it's just laying there. And Danny says it's depressed. Aww. And we learn that Rancors are emotionally complex creatures, and the reason it's wearing blinders is because it imprints on the first human it sees, and I'm immediately imagining we will get a future scene of Boba riding a Rancor, right?
Yeah, it's inevitable. And yeah, I was so bummed out to learn that this Rancor was depressed, though, that they were like emotionally complex, because it's gotta be it's gotta be rough for the first one to live down there in that hole all the time,
Yep. Yeah. I can't wait to see Boba ride through the streets of Mos Espa on a Rancor. Like, that's his litter that he's riding. He's gonna ride a Rancor.
100%. That's how he's gonna earn people's respect. Yeah. At least in that outwardly way,
Right.
Instead of having other people carry him,
right.
He's gonna be like, I ride a Rancor. We're not the same.
Right. And Boba steps up to pet the Rancor, and like we talked about before with the Bantha, this is another side to Boba we didn't know. He really likes animals. And it's evident. Boba announces he will spend more time with the Rancor. And Danny goes on to explain that the witches of Dathomir even rode them through the forest and fens. And that's a cool reference to, obviously, the Clone Wars. Asajj Ventress was a Dathomirian witch from the Clone Wars. She was kind of like Dooku's secret apprentice. And then also, if you played the Jedi Fallen Order game, you see Dathomir a lot in that game as well.
Yeah.
And then
I miss the Night Sisters.
I do too.
I want a new coven of Night Sisters.
Oh, they're out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Surely. And that's where Darth Maul's from, by the way. Dathomir.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another connection to Solo. At the end, Maul tells Kira,
"You're right.
Meet me on Dathomir."
You're right.
Huh. Interesting. So Boba says, I want to learn to ride this one. And then Danny is shocked. You what? Boba says, I want to ride it. I've ridden Beast 10 times its size. And so is that a reference to the holiday special?
I saw that on Twitter. I think it's, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like
so,
it.
like in
It's
Boba's first appearance in the holiday special, it was a cartoon, and he's riding a giant dinosaur.
Yeah. And other than having like a weird face, it's just a dinosaur.
You can actually watch it on Disney Plus. That one. You can't watch the other live action part of the holiday special, but you can watch the cartoon.
Yeah.
Boba continues to pet the Rancor and talks to it like a puppy. And then the imprinting begins. He stands in front of the Rancor, and Danny removes the blinders. And after that, Boba pets him again and finds that one spot that makes your leg kick.
Yeah.
And then the way AD8 leans over was very funny to me. Like he just leans into the frame behind the Rancor. I don't know. I thought it was really funny. And
I honestly didn't notice.
He says that they heard back from the mayor's office. It's going to be at least 20 days before they can meet with him. And then Boba orders the keeper to feed it a Ronto carcass, which Rontos are like the things that Jawas were riding in A New Hope when the speeder passes by and they almost fall off. That's a Ronto.
Yeah.
Boba decides he's just going to go deal with the mayor right now. He's over this.
I love that about him. Just like
he has no patience.
Yeah.
In Mos Espa, Boba is escorted through the streets by the mods in their candy-colored scooters. The mods stay behind as Boba and Fennec enter, and once again, seeing the Major Domo, the civil servant is right there too from before, and the Major Domo says that they can't meet today, but Fennec threatens him. And the Major Domo says that he might be able to rearrange some things, and then disappears into the mayor's chambers, but is once he's inside, he locks the door. And then Fennec pries open the console and hot wires the doors, and no one is in there. And then they run back outside to see the Major Domo driving away in his speeder. And at first I thought this was going to be like a really cool scene. Like, oh, this is going to be like Solo. But my Lord, okay. I could have jogged. I could have taken off jogging and caught up to the Major Domo. This is the world's slowest chase scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I liked that it was all close quarters and there was great potential there. And they did not utilize that potential.
No, it is so strange because you think someone like Robert Rodriguez, who is a little more action-oriented, wouldn't have a problem with something like this. Do you think it was intentionally like so slow, or it just did not work out in the editing?
I have no idea. I've only done one watch through of this episode today. I need to go back and watch it again, having talked about it, because there's all these little things. I'm just like, the chase didn't sit well with me somehow.
No, it made me like kind of mad. Like, I'm like, guys, come on. This is Star Wars. Put your best effort into it.
Yeah, I was mad too because Boba could have just jetpacked over there real fast, but then he waited behind and let the mods chase him, and then jetpacked over there anyway.
This scene had so much potential. Like, it could have been really cool, but it's just so odd. And
I like Drash. I like what she does with going up on the, above the street and
but it's literally at 2 miles per hour. Like, I would have felt totally comfortable on one of those scooters. Like, you would not get hurt at all if it crashed.
Yeah. It's like, oh, scrape my knee.
Right.
Oh, no.
It's like a bumper car. That's the speed at which they're going.
Galaxy's Edge should add bumper cars that are
that's it.
The mod scooters.
Because they're brightly colored? Oh.
They're bumper cars.
Oh, that would be... Actually, that would redeem this whole sequence if they did that. Oh, man. Now, if you like this sequence, I mean, that's awesome. But, man, it was...
I feel like you're having a much stronger reaction than I am. I was just like, yeah, that was kind of boring. You seem offended.
I am, because I could have ran beside all of them. Like, I'm not that fast of a runner. It was just so slow. Like it was like almost comedic to me, like an Austin Powers scene or something. Like, and I don't know if that's what they were going for. I want answers. This is so in Mandalorian season 2, we had the jetpack incident.
Yep.
This is the scooter incident, and I demand answers.
Scootergate.
Scootergate. Now, one of the mods eventually crashes through a painting of Jabba, and it's actually Ralph McQuarrie art.
Yeah.
We paused it on the Discord and we looked. They took Luke out of the art and changed 3PO's color, but it's the same painting.
Yeah, to make it canonically viable.
Yeah. And then eventually the speeder crashes into a bin of Melu runs, which is a Star Wars fruit. You see those in Star Wars Rebels all the time. And the Major Domo is caught. Boba then flies in and demands to know where the mayor is, and the Major Domo admits that the mayor is with the Pikes. He's working with the Pikes now. And then we iris out to a giant starliner flying over the city, and it passes by one that's already landed. We slowly push on the passengers disembarking, and it's the Pikes. And cybernetic eye youth watches with his mirror. He's not conspicuous at all, and especially with that bright red scooter he's on. He drives away and he goes to a hollow booth. Now, I did like
has
this.
to make a whole video call in the phone, like, or in the alley. Just
it's like a phone booth.
It's like a payphone. Like, you don't even get the booth aspect, but it's a video call. Like, what if you went up to a payphone, put your dime in, and then the webcam turned on and it was Zoom?
That's basically what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he looks around before calling Boba and Fennec back at the palace, and then Boba says, "Keep an eye on them." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, because he's got a cybernetic eye. Fennec says, "These are just the first wave. They're going to war." And Boba says that they'll be ready for it, and then the episode ends.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so, I mean, we covered a lot of ground. I think it definitely got us headed in the right direction for the Underworld present day plot. I think now we are running full steam ahead with the Book of Boba Fett. Who do you think the mayor? Do you think the mayor is actually working with the Pikes?
See, okay, that's what I want to talk about, because I don't feel like the Pikes are actually the big bad.
No,
they're one of them, just like the mayor. I think they're both working for Crimson Dawn.
Yeah, I think this is a shadow collective again.
Yes, So Kira has basically reunited the syndicates, and Boba's not included in this.
Right. And so it's Boba against everybody.
Yeah.
All under the banner of Crimson Dawn.
And I feel like the twins were trying to warn him without saying, like,
yep,
you got stuff coming that you don't even know, man.
Yep. And that's why, I mean, it would make sense, because the Hutts are that more independent. Like, they're less likely to join up willingly with another syndicate or anything like that, you know? Yeah. I feel like that's why they'd be like,
the first out.
We're getting out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's clear the twins just don't care. Like, they just, like, that's why they took their time getting to Tatooine. Because, like, I'm sure Bib Fortuna was probably just working for the twins. Like, they were fine with Bib running things, and then when he died, they're like, oh crap, we gotta go. Yeah. And then they started to realize, okay, this is much bigger than what we thought. And I think Crimson Dawn is coming. I do think that, again, now, I do think it's important. Let's not be disappointed if that doesn't happen, but I feel like it's over a 50% chance at this point that it happens.
Yeah, I'd say that too. Do you want to hear a wild, super unlikely thing, but just a bit of just irresponsible speculation?
I love irresponsible speculation.
The Rancor imprinting on Boba has actually now given him Boba as a target. It's a long con.
Oh god!
And the Rancor is like activated by a command or something that Fennec's gonna give,
sad.
and he's gonna turn on Boba.
That would be just as bad as the Tuscans in my like. I already love this Rancor.
I don't know about that.
No, maybe not just as bad, but I love this Rancor. I
do.
don't want anything bad to happen to this Rancor.
And it's a puppy. I'm like, this is just a big puppy.
That is irresponsible speculation, Mike. I demand you take it back.
Never.
Okay. So yeah. Now,
you conceded really easy on that.
Overall, I would give this episode probably like a 7.5 out of 10. Would have been like an 8.5 had it not been for the scooter chase.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed most of it. Like, again, I already said my piece about the other stuff. I thought it did a great job setting us up for, okay, I feel like we're done with part 1 of the Book of Boba Fett, and now we're heading into the final part.
Yes, and I mean that's kind of how the Mandalorian went.
Yes,
you know, and so I mean, it feels very much like we're in the same place, like beat wise,
yes,
as kind of we were, like as far as where we are in the action.
So let's talk about who we think directs next week. We know that Bryce Dallas Howard, she hasn't directed yet. Kevin, I can't pronounce his last name, starts with a T. He has directed several episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So he's very familiar with Ming-Na Wen. So that's like kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that means anything.
Right.
He hasn't directed his episode yet. And then it's kind of murky, but Dave Filoni definitely wrote one of the episodes, and it seems like he's directing one. But then I also saw something about Jon Favreau potentially directing it. But then I also saw something about Robert Rodriguez directing 3 episodes. So here's what I think. I think the next one's Bryce Dallas Howard, then Kevin, then Dave Filoni, and then the last one will be Robert Rodriguez again. So that's what I think. That's where I think we're going.
Okay. I'll say ditto because I haven't looked at the director speculation enough.
It just makes me excited because I think Bryce Dallas Howard's episodes of The Mandalorian were just so fantastic.
Yes, and
I can't wait.
What she has done in those episodes is like the person to person conflict, and so I'm excited to. I feel like maybe that's when we're going to get into some of the more. We're going to get a clearer view of maybe what's going on internally with Boba. Yeah. Maybe get a shade more of Fennec's motivations and the story there. And especially if you're saying that the flashback lines up, it would make sense that like everything's sort of been parallel in a way, you know? So that's an exciting premise for next week. You
think we'll get to see Toro Calican in this flashback?
I sure do not. I've been Mac. This is Alex, or the Children of the Watch. Bye. That's it.
All right. Well, for real though, thank you guys for listening. We love you.
Absolutely.
Call in special, the voicemail hotline.
Yeah, for sure. Call in. Special shout out to the patrons. And then until we talk again, keep the watch.